Before feminism had a name, before women's rights were discussed in parliaments or classrooms, there were women who ruled, resisted, and redefined history. Nzingambandi was a 17th-century African queen who fought the Portuguese for 40 years to protect her people from colonial domination and slave trading. She led armies in battle dressed in full warrior regalia. She refused to kneel to Portuguese governors, famously using a servant as a human chair to sit equal to them. Despite being surrounded by male enemies, she outlived most of them and died a ruler in her own land. Ever heard of the University of Al-Qarawiyyin? Founded in 859 CE by Fatima al-Fihri, it's the oldest existing and continually operating university in the world. She used her inheritance to fund this institution in Fez, Morocco, open to scholars of all backgrounds. Her vision, a center for science, math, theology, and languages, centuries before Europe's famous universities existed. Born in colonial Mexico, Sor Juana was a self-taught scholar, poet, and nun who wrote about gender equality at a time when women were barred from learning. She disguised herself as a boy to access books. Her poetry challenged the church's views on women's roles. She's now seen as a founding feminist of Latin America. Lisa Meitner, a Jewish Austrian physicist, discovered nuclear fission, the basis for atomic energy, but was denied the Nobel Prize. It went instead to her male collaborator, Otto Hahn. She fled Nazi Germany and worked in exile. Einstein called her the German Marie Curie. Without her, the science behind atomic energy wouldn't exist. These women ruled kingdoms, built universities, wrote revolutionary ideas, and split atoms. Yet history books barely mention them. In the next section, we move to wartime heroes, brave souls who resisted tyranny with words, music, and martyrdom. In times of war, women didn't just wait for peace. They forged it with courage, cunning, and unshakable will. Let's meet those who fought not with armies, but with resistance, sacrifice, and strategy. A university student and member of the White Rose, a nonviolent resistance group during Nazi rule, Sophie Scholl was arrested for distributing anti-Hitler leaflets in Munich. She was just 21 when executed by guillotine for treason. Her final words: "Such a fine, sunny day, and I have to go. What does my death matter if, through us, thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action?" Today, she is a national symbol of civil courage in Germany. A British spy of Indian descent, Noor Nayat Khan was trained by the Special Operations Executive So and dropped into occupied France as a wireless operator. She worked for weeks behind enemy lines, the most dangerous job in espionage. Captured and tortured, she never revealed a single name. Her last word before execution at Dachau was simply "Liberté." Known as the White Rose of Stalingrad, Lilia was a fighter pilot in the all-female Soviet Air Force units during World War II. She had 12 confirmed aerial kills, flew 168 missions before being shot down at 21. Nazi pilots at first refused to believe they were shot down by a woman. Not a soldier, but a voice. Fumiko Hayashi's post-World War II writing captured the pain and poverty of Japanese women during and after the war. Her novel Floating Clouds reflected how women struggled in a male-dominated, post-war society. She remains one of Japan's most respected literary figures, often overlooked in global feminist lists. These women risked and gave everything, not for medals, not for praise, but because silence was never an option. In the next section, we head to the USA to explore powerful, lesser-known women who shaped the nation's justice, science, aviation, and culture far from the spotlight. The United States has produced countless celebrated women, but some of the most impactful names were left out of the textbooks. Today, we honor those who paved the way in silence. Civil rights activist, lawyer, priest, and poet, Pauli Murray was decades ahead of her time. She was the first black woman ordained as an Episcopal priest. Her legal work influenced Brown v. Board of Education. She coined the phrase Jane Crow to describe the double discrimination faced by black women. A lifelong advocate for both gender and racial equality, The first woman of color elected to the U.S. Congress, Patsy Mink fought for gender equality in education. She co-authored Title X, the landmark law banning sex-based discrimination in schools. Because of her, millions of girls gained access to sports and education. Fiercely proud of her Hawaiian roots, a NASA computer scientist and rocket scientist, Easley was part of the team that developed software for early space flights. One of the few black women at NASA in the 1960s. Helped develop technologies that would power the Centaur rocket. She also broke racial barriers in STEM fields. The first African American and Native American woman to earn a pilot's license, and she had to go to France to get it because U.S. flight schools wouldn't accept her. Performed during air shows. Openly spoke against racism, died in a plane crash at just 34, but inspired generations of women of color to fly. Known for her iconic photograph Migrant Mother, Longa used her camera to give voice to America's poor during the Great Depression. Her work helped convince the government to fund food aid and support for displaced families. Her lens became a mirror to American suffering and strength. These women weren't household names, but they shaped America's soul, science, justice, and skies. In our final section, we'll explore modern-day changemakers, living proof that the legacy of these forgotten giants is alive and rising. While history often forgets its heroes, the fire of inspiration lives on. Today's generation of women continues to challenge the system, breaking barriers across science, activism, media, and innovation. A former electrical engineer, Kimberly Bryant, noticed her daughter was often the only black girl in coding classes. So she built a movement. Founded Black Girls Code in 2011 to teach tech skills to young girls of color. Over 20,000 girls trained in coding, robotics, and app development. Her mission, to grow the number of women of color in STEM from the ground up. A pediatrician turned hero, Dr. Mona exposed the truth about lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan. Used her medical data to prove government negligence. Took on the system to protect children's health. Authored a best-selling memoir, What the Eyes Don't See. Former Georgia gubernatorial candidate and fierce voice for voting access and democracy. Founded Fair Fight Action to fight voter suppression. Credited with mobilizing over 800,000 new voters in Georgia. A model of strategic activism and unapologetic black leadership. A member of the Waik-Mekong First Nation in Canada, Autumn is an environmental activist who started at age 8. Spoke before the United Nations at just 13 years old. Fights for clean water in indigenous communities. Called the water protector of her generation. At 11 years old, Marley noticed school reading lists lacked diversity, so she did something about it. Launched a campaign to collect 1,000 books featuring black girls as lead characters and surpassed 13,000. Became the youngest author featured on Forbes 30 Under 30. Her energy sparked a literary revolution in schools across the U.S.